Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Today, guys, kita masuk an area in continuation with what we have conducted, what we covered last week. So this area that we are going to is based on there is a contract, yeah, based on what we have covered. Last time, we need to establish whether there is a relationship between the employee and employer. When there is a relationship by virtue of contract of service, then the next step is to look at the content of that particular contract that has been identified. So if you will go to look at the content, the area that we are going to cover is the influence that we are going to look at. I admit. Okay. As far as the content of the contract of employment, it is being influenced by several factors, not only for the contract that has been signed, meaning when you are working later on, first day you report duty or a week before that, you go to your employer, and then the employer asks you to sign a piece of document, maybe one piece, maybe several pieces of document. So that is considered as contract. But the contract is not the only one that is going uh, to be the one that you are to be concerned with. Because as far as your contract with the employer, there are other elements that will affect the contract that you sign. Mainly legislation. Okay, you can see that one of the elements is legislation, and then we have the common law, meaning cases, yeah, or doctrine or decision that is being made by the courts. That is the one that is going to influence the content of the contract. And then last one would be the what we call the next one would be the collective agreement. Yeah. So this collective agreement is based on the agreement that you will have with the employer through the what they call it trade union. Okay. So this would be the content of our chapter that we are going to go through. There are 7. So we will be looking at the factors concerning the contract, yeah, governing the contract. Then secondly, we need to identify the contract of service in terms of what is being covered. Third, we will look at the sources of terms and condition of employment. Fourth, we will be looking at the type, yeah, of impact duty from the perspective of the employer. Then we will be looking at the impact duties of the employees themselves. And number 6, we are going to look at express terms, yeah, and condition. So express term ni semua ni we are in the area of contract. So contract law punya knowledge, contract 1, contract 2 will come into play. So number 6, we are looking at pecuniary element, meaning monetary punya element, and then we look at the last one is non-pecuniary elements, yeah, that is going to be part and parcel of the contract itself. Okay, let us look at the factors governing the contract of employment. So contract of employment between employee and employer, there will be the elements of express terms and implied terms. You know by now what does it mean, right? The express term and implied terms. Implied, that is not stated in the express, that will have equal and same we call it equal and enforceable elements for the contract itself. And then we have the legislation of the law that we have that governs the contract between the employee and employer. Then we have the collective agreement and common law duties. So already mentioned earlier. Okay, let's look at the first one, express term. Okay, as far as express term is concerned, it is you can see this. This is one example of contract that you are going to sign with your employer. So it is in express term. So normally you will be containing the date, the content in terms of your particulars that you need to what they call it agree. So this is another example. This is an old document. If we can see that it's 1945. This is the contract of employment juga. Yeah, this in the state. Okay, within the contract there is clauses. Yeah, so we have clauses, period of employment. We have position in which you are being employed. In this case, mechanist helper. Yeah, so that is the okay. I don't want to masuk. Sorry. Next is this is another example that I can show to you in terms of the restrictive covenants, or the terms and condition that is stated in that particular agreement or contract that you will sign with your employer later on. Okay, so when I highlight the red box, this is non-competition punya clause, whereby the employer is restricting your activities, during macam for example kat sini dia kata during employment or for 18 months after the separation date, meaning you are no longer the employee, so you are not to engage in any activities that is going to be detrimental to the current employer. So sometimes people work with that particular company to gain certain advantage in terms of how the business is being run, uh, the secret of a business, yeah, the recipe, uh, how the method of work is being conducted, and so on. So the employer needs to be protecting themselves, yeah, with this type of elements. Okay, that is very simple. Express term is the one that is being expressed by the employer to you by virtue of normally written. If it's not written, then verbal agreement is considered as valid. Now, as far as verbal is concerned, the honest of you proving that there is a agreement, so quite difficult lah. Yeah? So normally you have to insist, yeah, in order for you to secure yourself, to protect yourself, you have to uh, ask the employer to put it in writing in order for you to be safe. You can once it is in writing, it's clear for you to be able to use that in the court of law. Now we look at the vague element as far as implied terms is concerned. Okay, what is an implied term? Implied terms would be terms and employment where contract that is not necessarily set out in writing and or agreed orally. Yeah? So, but will nevertheless become parts of the agreement themselves, yeah, between you and the employer. No matter what, how well they drafted the contract, yeah, that we can have just now yang kita tengok tu, the express term, the contract itself, there will be certain things that is not covered. So obviously, this would falls under implied terms. Okay, and you it is important for us to know what is the obligation and duties of both parties, either the employee or the employer. So, in order for the court to establish whether there is the implied terms, whether there is implied terms or not, they will apply what we call legal test. Just like we identify whether there is a relationship between the employee and employer earlier on. So here we have a test as far as to identify whether the contract do have the implied terms. So what would be the test that is being applied by the court in order to determine whether there is a term implied terms or not? The first one, the court will look at the business efficacy test, meaning uh, whether the terms of the relationship between the employee and employer would have a situation whereby it is workable in terms of relationship. Okay. Um, Otherwise, the contract is not going to be something that is logical to be implemented. Say for example, di sini letak sini duty of mutual trust and confidence. Yeah. As without this, okay, because without this mutual trust and confidence, you are not able to have a continuous relationship. Uh, Kalau nak macam mana nak bagi example business efficacy, it does not make sense if you don't trust your employee and employer trusting your employee and the employee trusting their employer. So mutual trust and confidence, it will come in automatically. Yeah? So the court will apply this particular test to make sense of the relationship that is being established. Say for example, employee coming to office and then learning about things that is happening in within the company and going out and letting other people knows about it. You know, that is not written. Say for example, it's not written in the express terms. But if, say, for example, the employer is taking action against the employee for letting other people know about what is happening within the employment, so the employee cannot come back and say that, hey, this is not written in the agreement uh, that I should not inform others about what is happening within the company itself, right? So, if the case goes to court, say for example, the employer now wants to terminate you, you want to defend and saying that it was not written in the agreement. So, the court will apply a test, which is in this case business efficacy. Does it make sense if you have a relationship, but that relationship does not include mutual trust and confidence? You know, they employ you as an employee for you to do work in order for you to keep secrets, right? So if you were to inform others about the things that is happening within the company, then the employer is going to suffer in one way or another, right? Say for example, you tell about the production quality of that particular company, if the company that you're working with is a manufacturing company. So the product is going to have an impact towards the society, whereby the society now learns about what is happening. Say for example, I used to work with a manufacturing company, and the one that prepare the what they call it wiper. So you have this wiper rubber that you put it on your car in order to wipe the water off the screen. Now we purchase outside. Normally the price is roughly about 20 to 40 ringgit. But in actual fact, the rubber itself is by cost, by cost, it's only 5 cents. Okay, so if I were to inform others about the the cost, about how much money that the company is making, or in the industry is making, then it is not fair for me to do so, yeah, within the contractual relationship that I am with the employer. So the employer can take action against me for disclosing certain things that is not uh, it's not proper for me to do so. Okay, that is business efficacy. Yeah. So, guys, if you have any questions, just interrupt me and ask question. Okay, that is the first test. Officious bystander test is whereby the court will apply this particular test to make sense in terms of the relationship. A term, if that question, the issue is about one particular term, that term is so obvious and assumes to be implied into the contract. For example, an implied terms that the employee will not steal from the employer is an obvious term that is obviously to be within the written form. If it's not, then the court will say that anyone that is looking at the relationship between you and the employer would say uh, that is the term that should be included. Yeah? For example, as I already mentioned, uh, duty for you not to steal from the employer. If it's not stated in the written agreement, so anyone looking at the agreement that you go into this particular employer, so that person would be able to say that, hey, I think not stealing is one term that should be inside the agreement. Though it is not stated, it will be impliedly being put in. By whom? By a reasonable person that's looking at your relationship. Okay? The court will apply officious bystander test in order to determine whether it is logical for that particular terms to be included or not within the contractual relationship or the contract. Okay, so that is the second test. The third test is looking at the custom and practice that is being uh, that is within the work relationship between the employee and employer. So a term can be implied into the contract by virtue of custom and practice at the workplace or within the industry itself. For example, this could be whereby businesses close at a trade holiday and give staff paid holiday. Yeah, for example, hari Sabtu, right? For us, if you look at Saturday, Saturday is actually a paid, a paid rest day that the employer can ask you to come to work on Friday because under the law, only one day is to be given for you to have a rest. But as far as Saturday is concerned, it's considered as being paid. Yeah. So custom and practice is looking at the industry, looking at the practices that is being applied within that industry, whether Saturday is off or not. Yeah. Uh, say logical in terms of industry manufacturing, yeah. Say for example manufacturing. So manufacturing is run 24 hours. If it's run by with the situation of 24 hours, so obviously there will be what they call it a shift, yeah. So if say for example you enter into agreement with your employer to work with that employer, and then there is no express term to say that you are not to work night shift, right? So you argue in saying that, hey, there is no express agreement that I agree to work at night shift. Okay, the company maybe forget to mention about that particular term. So if that is the issue, that goes to court, and then the court will look at the custom and practice. Yeah, it is not logical for an employer to engage an employee and then not being able to utilize the employee for production processes, meaning if the company is running 24 hours. But if you work in HR, obviously the employer would not be able to force you to come to work at 2 o'clock in the morning, right? Because it doesn't make sense since you are just HR. What is the norm in the industry for when it comes to HR people? HR people will work at office hours. Office hours means from 8 o'clock to 5 o'clock, right? So if the employer is asking you to come to work at 2 o'clock in the morning, so you can always complain saying that it is not fair. And the court will be on your side, saying that it is not a custom and practice. Okay. Then the court will also look at the terms implied by statute, whereby some legislation will automatically give employees minimum rights that the employee cannot negotiate. And say, for example, when it comes to minimum notice of period, yeah, of termination. Say, for example, what is the norm in terms of the number of days? Yeah? So you have to give certain number of days for you to be released from your status in terms of your working. Okay, equal pay clauses. When it comes to equal pay, when it comes to minimum wages, you know, so the court will implement the implied rules by statute. So if the contract of employment attempts to do something that is, for example, lowering from the terms that is being expressed by legislation, then the legislation authority will be, or power will be the one that is overriding the employer's terms. Yeah? So, okay, express terms and implied terms, if you were to have a competition in terms of competition between them, which one is more powerful when it comes to express and implied? So it is usual for the express terms to override in terms of when it comes to implied terms, as the contract of employment is is personal between employer and employee. It is unusual for the terms to be implied, yeah, unless and necessary from the above figure test. So you cannot simply say that certain terms is needed into the what you call the contract. So unless and until that you can actually prove that the implied is stronger, and then the express is prevailing. So the express term is more stronger than compared to implied terms. Okay, let's look at some important implied terms. One is the duty to maintain mutual trust and confidence. Okay, this is whereby commonly relied upon the employer and employee. Yeah? So you have to, for example, here the employer must not conduct themselves in a way that will destroy that relationship that they have between their employees and themselves. For, for example, uh, physical abuse, yeah, physical abuse, verbal abuse, sexual harassment, yeah, imposing unfair condition. Then these are the things that is going to be implied in nature. Though it is not stated expressly within the contract itself, it will come as a very powerful implied terms. Okay, for example, verbal abuse. Normally, when you work with people, they will be in the sense of power. So they have the notion that they are more powerful because they are the one that paying your salary. In fact, they are not the owner of the company itself, because the company if you are talking about the employer, is the company. And if you are looking at the company itself, the company is just a piece of paper where legal, we call it a legal person that is being created. So if you're working with, say for example, Maxis, yeah, Maxis Berhad. So Maxis Berhad is just a piece of paper, a legal person that is being allowed to be established by law. Okay, but if you, let's say for example, if you work with Maxis Berhad, so therefore the actual employer would be Maxis Berhad, legal person that you cannot see, right? But if the person that is controlling you, say for example, the manager that is in your situation that you are reporting to a manager, that manager is not your employer, right? Okay. So, but the employer would normally utilize his position or her position to control you. And the one means of controlling would be verbal abuse. To certain extent, sometimes it goes to sexual harassment. You know? And sometimes imposing unfair conditions. So, for example, if you work with a company, you cannot go back. Yeah, you cannot go back until 10 o'clock at night. Every day that you have to stay back. So that is unfair conditions. Or meaning, or another example that I can give is that if you were working with a company that is wanting to reduce electricity, right? Then they don't on their aircon. So that is considered as imposing unfair condition. You cannot be working without, aircon. Or if you're working in the industry whereby you are supposed to get air, clean air, then therefore clean air has to be given. So that is, for example, I ambil example in my situation when I used to work with the factory, we are supposed to provide water for our employees, the manufacturing employees, because they were working in a condition whereby they are risking their health. So it is duty bound for us. It is implied duty for us to give certain privileges for them. Okay. So this is quite subjective, but it will be a situation whereby the court will consider. Yeah. This is just giving you example. And then duty of fidelity, meaning you are to be faithful to your employer and do not go against the interest of the employer. So this apply during the employment and do not carry on after you have left the company. So while you are serving the employer, you should be able to serve the employer in the best capability that you are able to do so. So, for example, this include carrying on a business in direct competition with the employer. So you cannot, while working with with that employer, you have another company. Yeah. So you are working three work at one time. Yeah, you're working. So you can be working with the company normal time. Yeah. Say for example 8 to 5, and then after office you can actually do whatever you want. But during office, if say for example you have online businesses, yeah. So while on your desk working, you look at your PC and look at your say for example products that you are selling online. So you are communicating with others through WhatsApp and phone, whatever. Right? So that is not considered as being faithful to your employer. Business time is supposed to be business. So you're supposed to work during the working hours. So post-employment restriction must be expressly written down. So if the employer do not want you to be able to disclose certain things about the company, so the employer must put that in writing. Yeah. So this duty of fidelity or faithfulness would apply during the employment. Next, we look at the duty to pay. So obviously, duty to pay is an implied term for the employer. Yeah. So uh, normally it would be under express term. However, if it is not being stated, then it doesn't mean that the employer can do whatever they want. Okay. Uh, the legislation will come in and imply that that particular term would be within the contract itself. You know? So the employee is entitled to reasonable remuneration and minimum wage that they would need to be provided for by the employer. So because how can the employer say, yeah, I want to prolong the payment. Okay, under the provision of the law, the employer is supposed to pay you after that particular period that you agreed to work with the employer to pay you. For if you are working for 1 month, right, for a period of that you go into a contract after a period of 1 month under the provision of the law, the employer can delay payment only for 7 days. Okay? They cannot go above that particular 7 days that is given by the law. So if it's not stated what is the date of payment of salary that is given by the employer to the employee, then the law will come in and through implied terms. Okay, so the employee upon getting the salary above the 7 days can complain to the labor office and ask the labor office to intervene and call out the employer and ask why you are doing this because it is against the provision of the law. So duty to pay is considered as one that is being applied by virtue of the law. Next, we look at duty to take reasonable care for the employee's health and safety. This is one thing that obviously for the employer to take care of you, being the employee that is working with the employer. So this duty state that the employer must ensure that the employee physical and mental health is taken care during the employment. Okay, so the employer cannot ask you to do certain thing that is risking you your physical health, you know, or your mental health uh, while you are working. You know, I'm looking at a situation if you're working with a factory, it is not reasonable for the employer to ask you to go up certain uh, certain structures, you know, without putting safety harness. You know, if you are working with cleaning of, for example, not you lah, we look at workers that is who work as laborers in terms of cleaning the what do you call it, the windows of a building. So you see in YouTube about the hazard of people working, you know, high rise, cleaning the windows of high rise building. So it's very risky for them. So if, say for example, the employer is not providing safety harness, then it is an impact terms. Yeah? So it will be part and parcel of the contract itself. Okay, it is their duty to take reasonable care in giving references. If, say for example, you don't want to work with the company anymore, normally you ask the current employer to give you a reference letter. Yeah? What do you call it? You know, some some acknowledgement in saying that yes, he has been our employee, and therefore we are satisfied with his or her performance while she or he work with us. Yeah, so working with the employer. So the duty of the employer not to say bad things about you within that reference letter. So it is not a norm in our society in Malaysia, but it is something that is a practice or a custom in UK. Yeah, to go to your new employer and give a reference letter that is being issued by the previous employer. Right. So that is one thing that is the implied duty of the employer to give reasonable uh, information. Yeah. So tak boleh lah to the extent that the previous employer, when they seal that letter, actually the letter is to be sealed only for the eyes of the new employer. So they cannot uh, make harsh statement about you within that particular letter. It's not fair. So people know nowadays is trying to get away from that particular practice, because that practice is going to be detrimental, because you are leaving the previous company. The previous company is not happy because you left the company uh, for greener pastures. Then you go to another company that is going to pay you more. Okay, so that is a contract between employee and employer as far as express and implied terms. So, any questions so far? Guys, yeah, are you still there?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so very straightforward, tak ada apa-apa sangat. So if you were to think about it, and you have a situation that in your mind that you want to seek clarification, just ask me through the WhatsApp. Okay, next we will be looking at the legislation. Yeah, when it comes to the legal framework that we need to look at, how the laws is going to govern the contract between the employee and employer. So if you look at the legislation, no, we are not only looking at the Employment Act or Industrial Relation Act. So there are many other laws that we have to look into that is going to have a role in the relationship between you and the employer later on. So you have Contract Act, obviously the Employment Act. If you have that, you are within that scope of salary that we mentioned in class earlier. We have Employment Amendment Act, which governs the terms in terms of sexual harassment and things like that. Then we have Industrial Relation Act, we have Trade Union Act, Company Act, we have Child Act, Factories and Machinery Act. So we have others act that you can see here, Occupational Safety Health, OSHA, we have EPF, we have SOCSO, we have Income Tax, we have Workmen Compensation. For example, income tax, the law will come in to force the employer to pay tax on your behalf. In terms of, say for example, you are getting bonuses from the company, and that particular bonuses cannot be given 100%. So the company must actually reduce whatever amount that is to be paid for the income tax. Say for example, if you are working as, not you lah, if a person that is working as a labourer, so obviously SOCSO, Employees Security Social Security Act will come in automatically, because this particular person that is working as a labourer needs to be protected by virtue of insurance. Kadang-kadang dia kerja putus tangan, the company did not have any insurance, but the government forced the company to provide certain amounts of money to be paid to the government in order for the government to create insurance towards the employee. So say for example ada kemalangan within the working environment, so therefore the employee can go to the government and ask for compensation. So that is Employee Social Security Act. Then we have Workmen Compensation Act, and then the things that with regards to compensation as far as you are being terminated. So obviously you can have Workmen Compensation. And then we have Wages Council Act. The agreement between the employer and yourself is being governed by another act when it comes to wages. Then we have Children and Young Person Employment Act. Then we have Weekly Holidays Act. It is already governed under the law. Okay? Then we have Pension Act. So for example, you're working, you need to secure your future after you have finished your service. Yeah? So you need to have pension. For example, the company that you're working with is is trying to guarantee you in terms of your security. So when it comes to pension, you need to identify what would be your rights. Then we have also Employment Information Act. We have Employment Restriction Act. We have Port Workers Act. And then if you're working with the port, if you're working with the petroleum, then we have Petroleum Safety Measures Act. We have Private Employment Agencies Act, and so on. Okay, so quite a number of acts. Yeah, we have, if you're working with public service, we have Public Service Tribunal Act. We have this is again sekali Employment Restriction Act. Sorry, second time I put it there. Statutory bodies discipline surcharge. This is when it comes to government person that is person engaged with the government. Pembangunan Sumber Manusia Berhad Act. We have Sabah and Sarawak. Obviously, Sabah and Sarawak, they when they enter Malaysia, they ask for special provision to be able to not to be governed by Malaysian laws, but governed by their own. Yeah. So if you're looking at the people working with the lawyers, yeah, in terms of legal fraternity, then we have the legal profession. Okay, if you're working with engineering and so on, obviously there will be laws governing that. Okay, so if you look at this, then you will see that there are so many laws that there is out there that is going to be an influencing factor to the contract that you sign with the employer. So when you sign a contract, it is no longer about the express terms. It is about the implied term, and it's also about the influence of the written law. And the written law is not only the two laws that we are exposed with, yeah, the Employment Act or IRA, but many others. Yeah. But so as I already mentioned here, many more depending on the nature of work or industry, yeah, that regulates that particular area that you're working. So that is considered as legislation that is going to cover the contract between you and the employer. Next is the collective agreement. Okay, so what is collective agreement? Collective agreement would be the relationship between the employee and employer, that is having the third person, that is the guardian angel for the employee. You know, when employees work with a company that is big in Asia, that is very powerful, say for example, you are working with, I really give you an example of Maxis Berhad. Maxis Berhad, as the name Berhad means, it is public listed company. Public listed company, they are running through millions, yeah, millions of transaction or monetary value. So they are big companies. When big companies, the chances are they are going to uh, not consider you as important towards their business. Yeah, business is more important as compared to employee. When I used to work with the bank previously, I was so frustrated when looking at the report that they came out uh, with respect to the value of uh, staff, yeah, value of the staff. So the bank, obviously, everything that is within the company is having value. When it comes to staff or employees, they, when I look at that report, it's only about $1 78 cents, something of that nature, less than 10 ringgit. So that is the amount that is they can factorize. You know, when you go and learn about employment, what do you call it, calculation in terms of accountancy. So if you have someone that is working with accountancy, they will be able to give you some input with respect of factoring in terms of the labor cost. So the labor cost is so insignificant. So they do not consider you as valuable. So once the employer, quote unquote, employer, it's not the company. Obviously, the legal person that we are talking about when it comes to that company, we are looking at the people that is controlling the company itself, which is we call it them as the quote unquote employer lah. So this employer, they do not care about us. So we need to have the trade union to be our guardian angel. So if you look at this slide, you will see the collective agreement that is being deposited to the industrial court in order for the court to agree ataupun to recognize. Yeah. So you can see here total number of collective agreement carried forward for cognizance. We have from 2005 to 2012. There are numbers, yeah, still pending one. So you have those being deposited, quite a number. We have 285 for 2012, and then we have something. Yeah. Okay. Then the trade union, for example, here we can see this slide, the list of all the uh, documents, yeah, by the employer. Sorry, document by trade union that is being deposited to the industrial court. So this agreement that is being signed by the trade union with the employer, say for example, you look on the right side of this, you have this union of you know, you have union in terms of Kesatuan Kebangsaan Pekerja Ladang, you have National Union of Plantation Workers, you know, we have what else? We have Shell Employees Union, you know, there we have the Sarawak Employees Union. So this union is they are the one that is going to be uh, representing the employees when it comes to relationship with the employer. Yeah, we have on you look at number 5, we have the Malaysian Agricultural Procedures Producers Association. Yeah, so we have an association that is going into relationship with certain pekerja ladang. Yeah, so that is the relationship that they have, and this particular document that is being agreed upon by these two parties is going to influence the contractual relationship of you and your employer. Right? So, say for example, any benefits that is being derived from the trade union punya document is going to automatically apply to you when it comes to you working with that particular company. This is just one example, collective agreement between Volvo Manufacturing and the trade union of National Union of Transport Equipment and Allied Industries Workers. So this union, the National Union of Transport, comprises of those people working with Volvo, yeah, the employees that is working with Volvo and other transport equipment, say for example Nissan, Toyota, you know, we have Proton. So we have all these workers that is working with their employer, but this this worker, they are going to be represented by a union, yeah, and that union is going to be the one that is going to protect them. And this document is the document that was agreed upon by the National Union of Transport uh, workers with Volvo. So let's look at the content of this particular agreement. So you have, if you look at this, when it comes to the terms and contract between the trade union and the employer, we have example, for example, sini item article number 8, grades and salary range. We have annual increment. We have merit in terms of how to give a person merit in terms of how to increase their status. And then we have hours of work, overtime, you know, the list go on. Yeah, every detail that needs to be discussed with the employer will be discussed with the employer by your trade union. So the trade union is your big brother that is going to be able to sit down with the employer and thrash out all the things that needs uh, to be verified. So even though your contract that you sign with the employer, initially there is no element in terms of, say for example, retrenchment. Yeah, there is no item number 27. I'm referring to item 27, retrenchment. So your written contract that you sign with your employer doesn't mention about retrenchment. It is not also governed under what they call it, implied. So it will have a significant impact by virtue of the trade union agreement that has been signed between the company and the trade union. So failing to adhere to this particular agreement, so the union can take action against the employer, okay, on your behalf. Say for example, the employer doesn't want to give some kind of compensation that was agreed upon by the employer with the trade union, and the trade union can take action by virtue of uh, industrial action. Industrial action can go to the extent of uh, picketing, you know, uh, then those are the things that the company can, the trade union can take action against. Tengok kat sini ada harsh, you know, kalau you nak buat haji and things like that, there will be things that is already agreed upon by the trade union with the company. What can be done? One example is I'm taking Article 18 here to show you what does it mean. Yeah? Study and trade union leave when it comes to study leave. Yeah? So the company undertakes cost of training where it is that the company is to be paid, yeah, to pay the employee kalau dia ada study, you know, study leave. Okay, so this detail is just to show you when it comes to the issue of study, you know, and trade union leave. If you want to go to trade union in order for you to enhance yourself, and the trade union asks you to be the person that is going to be representing the members of the employee within your company. So the employer must be giving that particular salary. Yeah, your salary continues. If say for example you go for training and the training is for 1 month, the company have to pay you that 1 month salary. How or why? It is because they have agreed upon with the trade union. Yeah. Okay, so that is collective agreement. So it is quite large. It depends on who, which trade union that you belong to. So whenever you work with a company later on, whether you are able to be regulated by a trade union, because that is your fundamental right, fundamental liberties actually. So for you to be able to uh, be attached to any union, for example, if you are an officer, you can also be attached to a union. It doesn't mean that trade union only for those lower rank workers. Yeah, it can also be even employer themselves. Not employer per se. Yeah? When you are referring to employer, those top management within the company, they are actually can be represented by virtue of union. So when I used to work with the bank, uh, uh, the officers, they themselves have their own union in order for them to be protected from the employer. Because when it comes to board of directors, when they make any decision, that decision might be detrimental to the officers. So the officers wanted to protect themselves, and they created a trade union specifically to make sure that nothing is going to uh, be happening to them in a negative way. Okay, so that is collective agreement. We will be looking at that area later on. Now we look at the common law duties. Yeah, the another influence that is going to impact the relationship of contract between you and the employer would be the common law duties. So anything that is being decided by the courts would be the factors that needs to be taken into consideration, though it is not stated in the express terms of the relationship that you sign with the employer, but it will come into play here. So we have this, for example, all employers have a common law duty to take care of their employees. We have this OSHA, Occupational Safety and Health Act, where every employer has the duty to ensure, yeah, duty under the law. So far, it is reasonable for them to do so when it comes to health, safety, welfare, you know. Kalau you pergi certain places, they are supposed to do what they call it, drill, yeah, safety drill. So safety drill has to be conducted by the employer in order to make sure that the employees are able to know the escape routes when it comes to fire or disaster and things like that. So they know what needs to be done. So in order for you to know what needs to be done, you have to do drills. So kalau you tengok certain places, certain companies, dia ada tempat berkumpul di sini. So tempat berkumpul you to assemble here. So you pergi dekat shopping complex, you will see those type of signs. Those are the things that is being implemented by the employer in order to make sure that the safety, health, and welfare is to be protected. Okay, they must conduct a risk assessment. Risk assessment needs to be done every now and then in order to evaluate what would be the risk that is being exposed to the employer employee when it comes to them working with that company. Kadang-kadang we have, kalau kita tengok already it raised the issue when it comes to our faculty. Kalau you perasan dekat kita punya admin law, the old building, we have the Dewan, right? So that particular Dewan, only one exists. Do you realize that? Ada one exit saja. So that is the exit that you go in and then you go out. The one that is at the bottom, where the lecturer is, standing, on the right side, it is locked. It is, it's locked. It's not possible for you to open up when it comes to emergency. And then kalau you tengok the one on top, you have the other way, the other door also is being locked. So under the purview of health or risk, that is something that we have to take into consideration. If there is a fire, then everyone, let's say for example, the lecture hall is full of people, can you imagine that the number of people that is going to go through that door? If, say for example, the fire occurs at that door itself, so there is no way for you to go out from that particular hall. So those are the things that we have to think as an employer. So the employer's common law duties, there are several, to provide safe place, to provide proper tools, to provide a safe system, and to provide competent staff. Okay, so let's look at the first one, to provide safe place. So obviously we are looking at common law duties. We have cases. In the first classic position of duty, we look at the case of Wilson, yeah, case whereby in this particular situation the minor was injured while he is ending his day shift by a car, yeah, uh, that is set in motion. You know, when you are working, you know, I mean, example, you can see in the movie or documentary, people working in the coal mining situation, there will be, you know, graba, that so-called uh, equipment that is going to be put into motion from one place to another to carry all the materials, to carry all the what they call it, the produce, yeah, the coal, yeah. So that is the situation whereby he was injured because of that. Okay, so the court, the defendant employers argued that they have discharged their duties in providing safe system of work. Yeah, so it was held by the court, yeah, House of Lords. Here, employers were liable because they could not avoid their duties to provide reasonable, safe system of work. Yeah? So this is just a classic example of a case, 1938, quite a long time ago. So just giving you an example. When you're working in the, you see the tracks, right? Obviously, the tracks is you have haulage, you have that so-called bin, yeah, metal bin that is going to go through. So it's dark, it's totally dark inside the tunnel. So they used to have mules, not for them to carry materials, but mules are not fast enough. So they utilize the what do you call it, the sort of a railway punya system. Uh, okay. Second, oh that yeah, okay. So yeah, okay. So I think that is the factors. The first factors is the factors governing the contract of employment. Okay. Uh, Next, we look at the. Are you okay, guys? Or should we continue with the content?
Okay, sir.
Okay. So we look at the second element, which is to identify the contract of service. So how do you need to identify the word contract of service? Uh, this contract of service means the agreement, whether oral or writing, whether express or implied. This is by virtue of Section 2, Employment Act, whereby one person agrees to employ another, and the other, meaning the employer, agrees to serve this employee, and the employee agrees to serve the employer. So the employer agrees to pay, and the employee agrees to do work. Yeah. This also include a partnership in the partnership contract. Okay, contract of service. Then we have the area that is governed under the contract under the area of employment act. Yeah? So we have the contract of service. So we have here that is mentioning about things that needs to be governed under the employment act. And we have notice of termination. We have termination without notice. Those are the things that is already identified by the law. Okay. Since contract of employment between employer and employee is a contractual one, none is said about the implication of such relationship when it comes to EA or IRA, but in industry court. Yeah, we have a case of ARMS Management and Gilbert. This is 1994 award. So fundamental terms to be clearly spelled out in the contract and communicated with the workman in the first instance, which is going to be binding towards him. So anything that is being identified by the company towards the employee at the first time that they engage a relationship will prevail. You know, sometimes the company wants to change the ruling, or say for example they want to change certain terms and condition. So the first term and condition is going to be the one that is prevailing. In Freemasons Nemahat, we have award 1996. Here I'm putting references from industry court that is quite long. Yeah? It is it's long time ago. So you can, by virtue of looking at the industry court recent what do you call it, awards that you are able to utilize and identify. Kan kita ada able to access nowadays, then you can check that. So in Freemasons and Mahat, what happened was the argument over the reserve of the company, the right to alter, vary of the terms of contract of service. Yeah. So they put into writing, saying that the company is trying to put into writing, saying that they are able to change the terms and conditions as the about the time period goes on. Okay. So it is true that the employer-employee relationship is a fundamental contractual in nature. But industrial law, this relationship is to be examined equitably. Yeah. So equity comes in, whereby it is not fair after you have signed a contract with this particular person, and then suddenly you change the contract. Midway while you having the contractual relationship. Hari ni, say for example, you sign a contract of employment with your employer today, and then after 6 months down the road, they change a certain provision in or terms inside the contract without you knowing. Yeah, so they cannot do that. If they were to do that, you obviously you learn contract law, right? Novation is whereby you are able to agree to that particular new terms. If you don't agree, they cannot force it onto you by saying that we reserve the right. That is not fair. Then the court will come in and say, by virtue of decision that we have already made, we are going to say that the employee would be guaranteed in terms of their safety. Next, kita tengok here, this would be a situation whereby Freemason punya situation, whereby 1995 there was corruption allegation that was put against this particular person. So she demanded that particular company to have a letter to clear herself from all allegation of corruption. So in this situation, whereby after 10 days, somehow she was transferred to a branch that is non-existent, that is situated in Kuantan. She refused to accept the transfer and she walked out. Yeah. So the court held that the company intention of sending her to that particular place, which is not existing, yeah, it was tainted with bad faith and riddled with suspicion. Because if why you are transferring a person, you can transfer. Obviously, the employer have the right to transfer you. However, they cannot transfer you to a position that is lower than your current position. That is called demotion. If they want to demote you, they have to have justification why they are doing that. Otherwise, that is tainted with bad faith. In this particular situation itself, she was transferred to a place to a branch that is non-existent. Yeah. Maybe an officer in Kuantan that is running the business on behalf of the company. It is not an official branch, for example. So that is something that is wrong. So the alleged Kuantan office was actually a residence of one of the company employees, which were informally operated as their branch. So her claim of constructive dismissal being upheld. So she claimed because she went off. So when she went off, she is able to come back and claim, demand, what do you call it, compensation from the company. So equitable refers to something that is characterized by fairness, impartiality, and lack of bias. So you dah buat kan equity and trust, right? Guys, you dah buat kan? So equity comes
Dah,
into
sir.
play lah. So equity in the name is the name given to the whole area of legal system. So you know where equity comes from. Yeah? Okay. Agribio corporations in Mahat. This is the court may decide may decline to enforce the contract. Yeah, at any rate, may decline to enforce any terms which is unfair. If, say, for example, you go and work with a company, then the term that the company is putting towards you, obviously you initially you agree lah, right? But the term is silent. Later on they will say, oh, do you know that we have this particular term? So obviously, oh, how come it is not written in the agreement that I signed? No. This is something that is it is for us to decide, and this is for our industry. So we say that this clause is very important. So it is going to be affecting you. So if you're not happy, then you go and ask for the court to decide, and the court will be able to say that they don't want that particular contract to be enforced or any of the terms that is unfair to be enforced. Okay, so because they put the courts put themselves as the employer having the superior bargaining power. Yeah, so superior bargaining power you know very well, right? So you nampak bila you belajar contract law, when it comes to exclusion clause. Okay? Exclusion clause is a clause that is being used by a person that is having a superior position when it comes to contractual relationship. Okay, kalau you nak naik, say for example, you nak naik Asia. Okay, Asia you cannot negotiate because Asia would not be able to want you to negotiate. If you were to purchase a ticket from Asia, you have to accept all the conditions. Either that or you don't go into contract. Yeah. So this is considered as an exclusion clause imposed by Asia towards you. So it is unfair. So if, say, for example, something happened and then Asia wants to invoke that exclusion clause, the court will not immediately take the exclusion clause as an exclusion clause, a valid exclusion clause. It will be scrutinized, it will be investigated in order for the court to say, okay, yeah, you have a valid exclusion clause. The same goes for employee and employer. Employer is having a superior bargaining power as compared to you. In this case, the employer will force to sign a contract fearing that they might lose their job. Yeah? So sometimes when you are working with people later on, after 1 year, after you sign that agreement, and then the employer come up with this new uh, new new agreement, a novation of that agreement, and force you to sign. I have a student that currently facing the same problem. She is getting salary roughly about 8,900 per month. She is the accounts manager. She is studying OUM, I'm a tutor of OUM. So she complained to me saying that during this COVID time, company is facing problem, and the company is forcing her to accept a salary reduction of I think about they are offering her is 2,800 as compared to 8,000 that she was receiving. So that is an issue. She needs to complain to the labor office. The labor office is unable to be contacted. So that is a big problem there. So in order for company, yes, we can understand that company is facing difficulties in this current period of time, but companies are supposed to have some kind of um, safety net, meaning that they are supposed to have some money that they are to use or utilize when it comes to a situation like this. So not to impose certain strenuous elements towards the employee. So you cannot force the employee to sign. In this particular situation, she was forced to sign. So identification of contract of service just now. So let's look at the sources of terms and conditions of the employment. So for sources of employment, the element of terms and condition, we would be able to look at the Employment Act and IRA. So for example, here we have Section 8 of Employment Act that prohibits the employment contract from restricting in any way of an employee to join trade union. So company tak boleh lah, to the extent the first day joining the company to sign the contract, the company bukan setakat have this what do you call it, the main contract. There's another piece of paper, right? So that is not part and parcel of the contract agreement. Okay, you have the contract agreement written out properly, and then there is another piece of paper. That piece of paper says, making a statement and say, I declare that I'm not going to sign or join any trade union. That is against the law, right? So here, Section 8 is clearly prohibiting that situation from happening. Why? Because that is in line with your fundamental rights. Because you are given your rights in order for you to join any trade union, freedom of movement. All right. To participate into any activities that are registered, when it comes to registered trade union, so you cannot simply join any trade union. If you want to join any trade union, you have to join the trade union that is registered. And to associate with another to form a trade union, you can always form a trade union if you want to. If you want to, right? That is your fundamental right. Second, the Act require the employment contract to be fixed, where it is a relationship. If it is exceeding 1 month, it must be in writing, and it must also contain the method of how this contract to be terminated. This is covered under Section 10 of the Employment Act. Third, the Act compels all employment contracts to accept the terms and conditions it legislates as the basis of the minimum terms and conditions of employment. So, for example, when it comes to the provision whereby the minimum day of rest per year for every employee would be 14 days. So the employer cannot sign an agreement with the employee saying that your holidays will be only 10 days, restricted to only 10 days. Okay? That is against the law because the law has already clearly identified the terms in terms of the number of days. Okay, so how does EA do that? We have any the section of section 7A. Any terms that is less favorable that is provided by the Act is considered as void. So section 7 also state that nothing in that particular section shall prevent an employer and employee to agree on the terms which is more favorable. So if you want to have more favorable terms with the employer, it can be done, right? So for example, minimum is the floor, kita panggil the floor ruling is that 14 days. If the employer wants to put in 14 days plus another 5 days, you can choose 5 days within that particular period of 1 year, then is more favorable when it comes to the employee. And that is allowable. Yeah, that is allowable. Section 7B, the Act declares that employment contract can make other terms and conditions that is what stated by that section or by that particular Act. So you can add in other things. For example, example. So for example, if you are working with a company, then the company says, if you work with our company, we will want to make the family member, family member of you and your husband to be covered under our insurance compensation scheme for medical medical claim. Some companies do that. Macam kita ambil Bank Negara. Bank Negara, if you're working with Bank Negara, their benefits are very lucrative. Sebab they cover, kalau tak salah saya, they cover the spouse, the family, obviously, and the parents. The parents, immediate parents, immediate family members is going to also be covered. So the nature of that relationship is what the terms that is covering the relationship is better than what the law is saying. Okay, type of work of arrangement. Okay, so that is the thing that needs to be identified. So type of work of arrangement, what time do you come to work, in what manner that you have to perform your duty. Say for example, you are working with that particular company as a salesperson. Yeah, if you are working for the company under sales, you are to provide your own car, or the company is providing the car. If you are being asked, say for example, you are working with HR, so the company has several branches. So you need to go to other branches. What is the mode of arrangement when it comes to work? That if you were to go to other branches, can you claim mileage? Is it possible for you to claim what mode of transport? Is it allowed for you to claim flight? Is it land transport? Those are the things. If you're going there for several days, say for example, off the area of work. Say for example, the company, the branch is located in Sabah. You are working in Klang Valley. If it's within the Klang Valley, what is the work arrangement? So do you have to punch out, to come back to the office after you went to that particular branch? If, say for example, you were asked to go to the branch I mentioned just now in Sabah, right? So you have to have some working arrangement. What do you mean by working arrangement? Normally, when it comes to that traveling day, is considered as a paid holiday. So for you to travel, it doesn't mean that meeting is at 2 o'clock. You go out from your house at 9 o'clock. No, because as far as relationship in terms of you going outstation, you have to have some kind of work arrangement. So after you have completed your duty there to come back, then that is also a travelling day. So it is very clear in the government punya area. So in government punya situation, it is very clear that if you were to go out off outside the area of your working domain, then you are able to claim certain rights. There is a need for flexible terms to be applied. Okay, and obviously lah, yeah, when it comes to flexible terms, it can doesn't mean that you are fixed only to that particular terms that is signed. So it can be flexible in terms of the nature. So you can here there are some areas that needs to be considered as basic elements when it comes to contract employment. So these are the things that is normally when it comes to the content of the contract that you sign. Obviously, there is an element of name, date, job title, place of work, hours of work, probation period, duration, salary, and so on. Okay, so these are the basic things, yeah, that you need to go through. When it comes to evaluation, deduction, expenses, annual leave, public holiday, sick leave, medical status. So these are the things that you have to like look into with the relationship that you have under the written relationship. Okay, when it comes to expenses, uh, who is going to bear that particular expenses if you are going to go to outstation, you know, your transport, who is going to pay for the transport? How do you claim for the transport if the company is saying that they are going to pay for all expenses? So annual leave, how do you take your annual leave? How many days that you need to give in advance in order for you to take annual leave? So when it comes to emergency leave, say for example, your family member is suffering from certain disease, so you have to take emergency leave. How do you do that? Can you go off without notifying your employee that you are taking emergency leave? If you were to call the employer, who do you call? Those are the things that needs to be fleshed out when it comes to public holiday. Which public holiday they have a situation whereby certain state to certain days. Yeah, kita ada wilayah persekutuan, they will they will take wilayah persekutuan day, things like that. Then we have the state, we have the birthday of all the states, the king, the sultans, and so on. So public holiday depending on the nature of the place where the employer is having. Sick leave, in order for you to take sick leave, how do you calculate that, when it comes to sick leave? Sometimes sick leave is uh, the company provide only 7 days, out of a year that you are able to take sick leave. Sick leave 7 days has expired. Katalah you ambil 10 hari within that year. So the 3 days is not considered as a uh, paid leave. So you will be deducting from your salary. So when it comes to termination, how to have retirement, okay, things that you are able to do, restriction, how disciplinary action is to be taken against you. When it comes to punishment, severity, in terms of severe or not, the punishment, kalau you kena turun pangkat, kalau you nak kena transfer, kalau you nak kena you don't have to come to work, you are going to be deducted in terms of the number of days that they are punishing you. So how far that the company can do that? Okay. So accepting gift, can you accept gift if you are working with that particular company? You know, some gift is something that is on bribery punya situation. Okay. Gift, kalau kita tengok people are giving other people when it comes to festival holidays. So kadang-kadang kita tengok people dapat hamper and things like that. What is the policy? Yeah, when it comes to that particular company officers accepting gift. Yeah. That is something that needs to be thrashed out. Corporate entertainment, when it comes to what extent that you are able to entertain your clients, if you are to be asked to do entertainment. So kalau you kerja dengan your firm, legal firm, chances are the company asks you to do entertainment, to the banks punya officers outside business hours, bawa dia pergi makan, things like that. So when it comes to that amount of money, who is going to pay, So to what extent it will cover you. Maybe the company, the firm is going to pay you 5,000 per month for entertainment punya element. If more than 5,000, then you have to pay yourself. Dress code, if you're working with, for example, COVID sekarang kan, when it comes to private hospital, they have their own attire that they can implement towards people from time to time. Okay. Intellectual property rights, if you're working with that particular company, what needs to be done in terms of what you call it? If you produce certain product while you're working with that particular company, whether that company have rights over the product that you produce. And for example, ITM, I'm working with ITM. If I were to produce an article, whether that article belongs to ITM, whether I have to acknowledge ITM as part and partial. I cannot simply put only my name. I have to put my name with the position I am in ITM. Okay, so quite a number of elements that needs to be identified when it comes to that relationship. Okay, I think we are nearing the session. I think banyak sangat you dah nak pengsan dengar. So go through these slides. We have number 4, 5, 6, 7, and we will try to go through. I will try to create a video in order for you to don't have to have this Zoom session for us to record, but I will try to record it, off computer lah. So I think that's the end of the session. So thank you very much, guys, for the session. So hopefully, hey, by the way, kita ada tutorial, right? Can we make it at 2 o'clock, or do you have another class at 2 o'clock?
Okay, sir.
Okay, at 2 o'clock, So thank you so much. So take care.
Thank you, sir. Take care
Thank
too.
you, sir.
I will upload the recording in a short while, inshallah.